Nehemiah, the man who prayed. In today's story, we hear of a man who trusted God, and God used him to begin a very important task. The man's name was Nehemiah. He must have been a very honest and trustworthy man, because he had a very important job. He actually served wine to the mighty king Artaxerxes. You may remember that hundreds of Jews had been captured and carried off to Babylon. After many years, Babylon itself was overcome by a Persian king. Now Artaxerxes was king, but not just a king, but an emperor over many countries. We can see what an important position Nehemiah had. The king lived in a palace in Susa, in the midst of his empire. He was held in high regard. People feared him. In fact, no one would visit the king without being told to do so. Nehemiah could only go to him to test and pour out his wine. Also, no one was allowed to enter the king's presence with a sad face. Nehemiah had settled here in Susa, while many other Jews had returned to Israel when given the chance. In fact, Nehemiah's brother had returned to Jerusalem, and one day he visited Nehemiah. Nehemiah asked about this city. His brother told him that the walls of Jerusalem were still in ruins, and the city was totally unprotected from their enemies. They were in disgrace. This made Nehemiah very sad. Being a man of God, he prayed for many days about this situation, asking God for his help and to know what to do. Finally, he knew he was to tell the king. He would have to show the king he was sad. The king would either ask why he was sad or have him executed for not being happy in his presence. We can imagine how fearful this made Nehemiah. But Nehemiah trusted God. So just before he entered the king's presence with the wine, he prayed for God's help, and God was faithful. The king asked him why he was sad. Now Nehemiah could tell him all about Jerusalem. Artaxerxes was kind and helpful. He gave Nehemiah permission to return to Jerusalem, letters to ensure a safe journey back, and an armed escort. Nehemiah could also take timber from the royal park to help with the repairs. Wow! Once he had arrived back in Jerusalem, Nehemiah rested for 3 days. Then he went by night, along with a few other men, to inspect the walls of the city. Next day, he summoned the leaders of the people. Now he told them that God was with them, and they were to rebuild the city walls. They were not to be a disgrace any longer. Even the mighty king, Artaxerxes, was completely willing for this work. Wonderfully, the leaders wanted to begin the work straight away. We will hear next week how good and faithful God was to his people, so that Jerusalem was rebuilt, in spite of much opposition from their enemies. And God is still the same faithful God who can and will keep us all the way to heaven. But we must turn to him and trust him, even when it's scary or unpleasant. We can expect opposition, but God has already won the battle for us on the cross of Jesus. Hallelujah.
all your needs, my God will supply all your needs. It says so in the Bible, Philippians 4, verse 19. Philippians 4, verse 19. Philippians 4, verse 19. It says so in